The email arrived during elder board prayer. My phone buzzed in my pocket. We were in the church conference room, 12 of us, hands linked in a circle. Marcus Morrison's palm was warm against mine. He squeezed once the way he always did during prayer. Like we were brothers. Like we'd been brothers for 23 years. I should have ignored it. Should have kept my eyes closed, kept praying with the men who trusted me to lead them, but the vibration was insistent. Triple buzz. The pattern that meant urgent notification. I glanced down. The screen glowed through my pocket. I could see the teal and white colors. Ancestry DNA. The app Hannah had been so excited about 3 weeks ago. Our Heritage Sunday project, she'd called it. Tracing our European roots for the church's autumn celebration. She'd even gotten Ryan to do it with her. A couple's thing. I pulled my hand from Marcus's grip, reached for my phone. The prayer kept going around me. Elder Thompson was thanking God for faithful leadership, for families built on biblical foundations, for the example our church set in Cedar Rapids. I opened the notification. New close family match, Hannah Shepard and Marcus Morrison. My vision tunneled, the words blurred, came back into focus. Predicted relationship parent-child, confidence 99.8%. Marcus Morrison, my best man, my college roommate from Moody Bible Institute, the man sitting beside me in this prayer circle, the man whose hand I'd been holding 10 seconds ago, the father of Ryan, Hannah's fiancé, her biological father. Nathan, you okay? I looked up. All 12 elders were staring at me. Marcus's face, his weathered 56-year-old face with the same gray eyes as Hannah, looked concerned. My mouth was dry. I need to step out. I left the room, walked down the hallway past the children's ministry classrooms, past the bulletin board with Hannah's photo, Teacher of the Month, September 2025, past the sanctuary doors where I'd preached 1,100 sermons over 18 years. I pushed through the side exit into the parking lot, September air cool against my face. I could still hear them inside, probably finishing the prayer without me, probably wondering what was wrong with Pastor Nathan. Everything was wrong with Pastor Nathan. I leaned against the brick wall and read the email again. The app was cheerful, helpful. It even included a little family tree diagram. Hannah's DNA profile connected to Marcus's with a bright blue line. Father-daughter relationship. No ambiguity. The algorithm was certain. My daughter, the girl I'd raised for 22 years, baptized in the sanctuary font, taught to pray, walked through every crisis of childhood and adolescence, wasn't mine. She was Marcus Morrison's, the man I'd trusted with our investment portfolio, the man who stood beside me at my wedding, the man whose son was marrying my daughter in 6 weeks. I pulled out my keys, got in my car, drove home on autopilot, barely seeing the streets of Cedar Rapids passing by. The house was dark when I got there. Rebecca was at her Wednesday night women's Bible study. She led it, actually. 30 women gathered in the church fellowship hall, learning about godly marriage from my wife. Hannah was probably at Caleb's house, at the Morrison house, I realized, sleeping under Marcus's roof. I went to my home office and closed the door. The room was exactly as I'd left it this morning. My burgundy leather Bible sat on the desk, the one I'd used for 18 years. ESV Study Bible, my name embossed in gold on the cover. The corners were worn smooth from handling. I could see my own handwritten notes peeking from the margins. Sermon after sermon after sermon. I'd preached 1,100 sermons on truth, and I'd been living a lie the entire time. I opened the Bible without thinking. My hands knew where to go. Psalm 51, David's confession after Bathsheba. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Restore to me the joy of your salvation. The pages whispered as I turned them, thin as onion skin, gilt-edged. The smell of old paper and leather conditioner. 18 years of Sundays lived in those margins. But what if none of it mattered? What if the foundation was rotten? I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I picked up my phone and opened the Ancestry DNA app again. Maybe I'd misread. Maybe the algorithm was wrong. DNA tests made mistakes, didn't they? But there it was. Hannah Shepard, Marcus Morrison, parent-child relationship. 99.8% confidence. I scrolled through the additional information, shared DNA segments, centimorgans, scientific certainty expressed in numbers and charts I didn't fully understand but couldn't deny. Hannah had submitted her sample 4 weeks ago. So had I, actually. She'd insisted the whole family participate. It'll be fun, Dad. We can compare our Italian heritage. We'd spit into tubes together one Sunday afternoon, laughing about it. My results hadn't come back yet, but Hannah's had, and they'd matched her to Marcus Morrison instead of to me. How long had I been sitting there? An hour? 2? The front door opened. Rebecca's voice carried down the hallway. Nathan, are you home? Your car's in the driveway, but the lights are off. I didn't answer. She appeared in the doorway of my office, still beautiful at 52, hair pulled back from Bible study, carrying her worn leather Bible, the companion piece to mine. We'd bought them together when I became senior pastor 18 years ago. Hey, she said, why are you sitting in the dark? I turned on the desk lamp. The sudden light made us both squint. How was Bible study? I asked. My voice sounded normal, pastoral, like I was making small talk. Good. We're in Proverbs, talking about truthful lips enduring forever. She smiled, set her Bible down on the chair. Are you okay? Elder Thompson texted me that you left the meeting early. Truthful lips, I repeated. That's appropriate. Something in my tone made her stop. Her smile faded. Nathan? I picked up my phone, turned the screen toward her, watched her face as she read. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand went to her throat, a tell I'd seen in hundreds of counseling sessions, the universal gesture of someone caught in a lie. I can explain, she whispered. Can you? I set the phone down carefully, because I'm very curious how you're going to explain why our daughter's DNA matches Marcus Morrison as her biological father. Nathan, how long have you known? She didn't answer, just stood there, hands still at her throat. Rebecca, how long? I didn't know for certain, she said finally. I wasn't sure, but you suspected. Silence. When? My voice was getting louder. I forced it back down. Pastoral control. When did it happen? The wedding weekend. The words came out barely audible. Before our wedding, during the bachelor party weekend. The bachelor party. I repeated it slowly. My bachelor party, when I was celebrating marrying you. That's when you slept with my best man. It wasn't planned. I was angry. Your father, Robert, he said something at the rehearsal dinner about my family. About how Castellanos were bulk wine peasants, how I was lucky to marry into real people. I was 23 years old, Nathan. I was hurt. I got drunk. And Marcus. I stood up. My chair rolled backward into the bookshelf. My college roommate, the man I asked to stand beside me, he, what? Comforted you. I'm sorry. Sorry. The word tasted like ash. 22 years. You've been sorry for 22 years? I prayed about it. I confessed to God. I asked for forgiveness and You asked God for forgiveness. What about asking me? She flinched. I was afraid. Of what? The truth? Of losing everything. We stared at each other across my office. My wife of 23 years. The woman I'd built my entire adult life around. The mother of my children. Except she wasn't the mother of my children. Not Hannah, anyway. Was it just Marcus? I asked. Or were there others? Another silence. Longer this time. Rebecca. I don't know, she said finally. I don't. That weekend is blurry. I was drinking. I was angry. There were 4 groomsmen. I know Marcus. I think there might have been... She stopped. Might have been who else? I don't remember clearly. 4 groomsmen, my best man, my 3 college friends, all of them at my bachelor party, all of them standing beside me at my wedding 3 days later. When you got pregnant, I said slowly, did you know? I prayed it was yours. That's not what I asked. Did you know it might not be mine? She closed her eyes, nodded. And you never told me. I convinced myself it was yours. After Hannah was born, she had your smile, your temperament. I told myself God had answered my prayers, that he'd made it right, that you could just lie for 22 years and it wouldn't matter. I wasn't lying. I was hoping. I was believing. You were lying, Rebecca. I picked up my phone again. Read the screen aloud. Parent-child relationship. Marcus Morrison. 99.8% confidence. This isn't hope. This isn't belief. This is DNA. This is science. This is the truth you've been hiding since the day Hannah was born. She was crying now. Real tears streaming down her face. The same face I'd looked at across the breakfast table for 2 decades. The face I'd kissed goodnight 8,000 times. I love you, she said. I love Hannah. I love our family. I made a mistake 23 years ago, and I've spent every day since trying to be the wife you deserved. You don't get to decide what I deserve. My hands were shaking. I shoved them in my pockets. You don't get to steal 22 years of my life and then tell me you were trying to be good enough. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. All of it. How many of them? Which ones? When? I told you. I don't remember. Try. She sank into the chair, covered her face with her hands. When she spoke again, her voice was muffled, broken. Thursday night, the night before the rehearsal dinner, I think it was Marcus, maybe someone else. I was in the cottage at the lake house. Your father he'd humiliated me at lunch, called my family amateur vintners. I was crying. Someone came to check on me. Who? I don't know. It was dark. I was drunk. I think it was Marcus, but it might have been... She stopped. Who else? Jason or Tim, maybe both. I remember Friday morning, after the rehearsal dinner, you'd gone to bed early because you had to meet with the pastor, and multiple someones came to the hotel room. I felt sick, actually nauseous. Multiple. I was angry, Nathan, so angry at your father, at you for not defending me, at the whole situation. And they paid attention to me. They made me feel seen. So you slept with my groomsmen, plural, the night before our wedding. Saturday morning, too, the morning of the wedding, before we got dressed. I think it was Tim or Jason. They blur together. They blur together. I repeated it, tasted the horror of it. 4 men in 3 days while I was preparing to marry you? I'm sorry. Stop saying that. What else can I say? Nothing. I picked up my Bible. The burgundy leather was cool in my hands. 18 years of sermons. 1,100 messages about truth and integrity and biblical living. And my own marriage was built on the worst kind of lie. I need you to leave, I said. Get out of my office. Get out of my sight. I can't look at you right now. She stood, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the frame. Nathan, please. Hannah can never know. It would destroy her. Hannah. I looked up. Our daughter. Except she's not our daughter, is she? She's your daughter. And Marcus's daughter. I'm just the man who's been paying for her for 22 years. Don't say that. It's the truth. You wanted truth? That's the truth. She left. I heard her footsteps going up the stairs, heard the bedroom door close. I sat in my office until 2 a.m, staring at my Bible, at my phone, at the DNA results that had just destroyed my entire life. I've preached 1,100 sermons on truth. I never imagined the hardest truth would be the one I'd have to preach to myself. Sunday morning came too fast. I hadn't slept. Hadn't really moved from my office. Rebecca stayed upstairs. Around 5 a.m., I heard her getting ready for the early service. Heard her practicing vocal warm-ups for worship team. like it was any other Sunday, like she hadn't just admitted to sleeping with 4 of my groomsmen the weekend of our wedding. At 6:30, I showered, put on my gray suit, the one I wore for serious sermons, picked up my Bible from the desk. The burgundy leather was cool against my palm, familiar weight, 4 pounds of everything I'd built my life on. I drove to church separately, walked in through the side entrance. Staff was already setting up. Linda Chen, my associate pastor, caught my eye from across the fellowship hall. She knew something was wrong. 18 years of working together, she could read me. I shook my head slightly. Not now. The sanctuary was filling up. Early service draws about 700. I could see Hannah in the 3rd row, sitting with Caleb, my daughter, except, no. I couldn't think about that. Not yet. Not while I had to preach. The worship team took the stage. Rebecca was on the right side, microphone in hand. She avoided looking at me. Started singing "How Great Thou Art" with the same perfect pitch she'd had since college. I stood in the wings, waiting for my cue. My sermon was on biblical fatherhood. Abraham and Isaac, the sacrifice that never happened. I'd written it 2 weeks ago, back when I thought I knew what fatherhood meant. The irony was suffocating. Worship ended. I walked to the pulpit. 2,100 people across 2 services, plus another 800 watching the live stream. My church, my congregation. 3,000 faces who trusted me to tell them the truth. I opened my Bible. The pages whispered in the silent sanctuary. "Turn with me to Genesis 22, I said. My voice was steady, pastoral. The story of Abraham's test. God asks him to sacrifice Isaac, his only son, the child of promise, and Abraham obeys. I preached for 35 minutes, talked about faith, about trust, about fathers who love their children beyond reason. Every word felt like glass in my throat. I watched Hannah taking notes. She did that during my sermons, had since high school, wrote down quotes for her youth group lessons. She wanted to use this message for premarital counseling with Caleb. With Caleb. Marcus Morrison's son, her half-brother, if we were being technical about biology. The thought made my stomach turn. I finished the sermon, gave the benediction, stood at the back door, shaking hands, smiling, making small talk. Elder Thompson asked if I was feeling better after leaving Wednesday's meeting early. Just fine, I told him. Just needed some air. Marcus Morrison came through the line, shook my hand. His grip was firm, familiar. Great sermon, Nathan. Really spoke to me. I looked at his face. Really looked. Gray eyes, strong jawline, the same features I'd seen in Hannah's reflection 1,000 times. How had I never noticed? Thank you, Marcus, I said. He moved on, went to talk to Rebecca by the coffee station. I watched them, my wife, my best friend, both of them smiling, both of them pretending. Hannah bounced over after the crowd thinned. Dad, that sermon was amazing. Can Caleb and I use it for premarital counseling? The part about sacrificial love was perfect. Sure, sweetheart. She hugged me. I held her tight, breathed in her shampoo, same coconut scent since middle school. My little girl, except she wasn't mine. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Hannah. She pulled back, studied my face. Are you okay? You look tired. Long week, I said. Just long week. She squeezed my hand and went to find Caleb. I excused myself, went to my office, locked the door, sat at my desk with my head in my hands. If you've ever had to smile through heartbreak, if you've ever stood in front of people and performed normalcy while dying inside, you know what that Sunday felt like. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is show up when we're shattered. The mask we wear doesn't make us liars. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping us standing. By Monday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed evidence, real evidence. Something more than Rebecca's blurry confession and a DNA test that Marcus didn't even know about yet. Rebecca had gone to lead a women's ministry planning meeting. I waited until I heard her car leave, then went upstairs to our bedroom, her nightstand. That's where she kept her private things. old journals, letters, the stuff from before we got married that she'd never thrown away. I opened the top drawer, felt like a thief in my own home. There it was, a fabric-covered journal, floral pattern, faded from age. I'd seen it before, but never opened it, never had reason to. I carried it back downstairs to my office, sat at my desk. The journal smelled musty, old paper. When I opened it, the spine cracked. It hadn't been touched in years. The first entry was dated June 2001, Rebecca's handwriting in purple ink. She'd always written in purple ink. I flipped forward. June 2002, our wedding month, June 4th, 2002. 3 days until I marry Nathan. I should be excited. I am excited. But Robert Shepard is impossible. He called my family bulk wine peasants at lunch today, in front of everyone. Nathan laughed, like it was funny. I wanted to disappear. June 7th, 2002. Rehearsal dinner tonight. Robert did it again. Said Castellanos weren't real winemakers. Nathan didn't defend me. Just sat there. I hate him right now. I hate all of them. There was a gap. Then a short entry. June 7th, 2002. Late. Don't write details. Just remember, Thursday night cottage, Friday hotel, Saturday morning. God forgive me. My hands started shaking. I turned the page. November 12th, 2002. The pregnancy test is positive, 8 weeks. I counted backward. It happened at the lake house between June 6th, 9. That means it could be Nathan, June 4th, last time before we agreed to wait until wedding night, or one of them, maybe two of them. I don't remember Thursday night clearly. I remember Friday. I remember Saturday morning. Oh God, what have I done? November 15th, 2002. Told Nathan I'm pregnant. He was so happy. Cried. Said he couldn't wait to be a father. I wanted to die. November 28th, 2002. Doctor says I'm due in June. I've been praying nonstop. Please let this baby be Nathan's. Please don't let my sin visit consequences on an innocent child. I'll never tell. I'll be the perfect wife. I'll earn God's forgiveness through silence. December 25th, 2002. Hannah kicked today. Nathan felt it. He was so gentle, so excited. Marcus was at the Christmas service. He hugged me, congratulated us. I wanted to vomit. What if she's his? What if she's Jason's or Tim's? What if I never know? January 10th, 2003. I'm telling myself it's Nathan's. I have to believe that. If I believe it hard enough, it becomes true. That's faith, isn't it? June 15th, 2003. Hannah Grace Shepard born today. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Perfect, beautiful. Nathan cried when he held her. I cried too, for different reasons. I closed the journal, set it carefully on my desk. 22 years. She'd known the entire time. Not just suspected, known that Hannah might not be mine. She'd prayed about it, journaled about it, and then she'd locked it away in a drawer and pretended. Maybe all 4. I whispered to the empty office. She doesn't even know. 22 years and she doesn't know. The journal sat there. Purple ink. Faded floral cover. Evidence of systematic deception wrapped in prayer language. Rebecca hadn't just made a drunken mistake. She'd made calculated choices, chosen silence, chosen to let me raise a child, love a child, while knowing I might not be the father, and she'd used God as her accomplice. Tuesday evening, I called Marcus. Nathan, hey, what's up? I need to talk to you, in person, tonight. Oh, sure, Jennifer's got book club. I could meet you at church parking lot, 10 o'clock, come alone. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, is everything all right? No, Marcus, everything is not all right. I hung up. The parking lot was empty except for 2 cars, mine and Marcus's. The church building loomed dark behind us. I'd spent 18 years here, preached, counseled, married couples, buried the dead, the foundation of my entire adult life. All of it about to crumble. Marcus got out of his car, walked over to where I was leaning against mine. Under the parking lot lights, his face looked older, tired. What's going on? He asked. I pulled out my phone, showed him the Ancestry DNA notification. He stared at it. His face went pale. Nathan, tell me the truth. Did you sleep with Rebecca during our wedding weekend? His mouth opened, closed. He looked away. Marcus, yes or no? It was 23 years ago, he said finally. We were young. We were drunk. It didn't mean... Yes or no? Yes. The word came out barely audible. Friday night, after the rehearsal dinner. You'd gone to bed early. She was upset. Your father had said something. I went to check on her and you slept with your best friend's fiance the night before his wedding. It was a mistake. A mistake. I pushed off from the car, got in his face. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is showing up late. You deliberately slept with the woman I was about to marry, and then you stood beside me at that wedding and watched me vow to love her for the rest of my life. You're Hannah's biological father, Marcus. Did you know? I never thought... Did you know? I suspected, he whispered. After she was born, Hannah had my eyes, but Rebecca said she was yours, said she'd counted the weeks. I wanted to believe her. You suspected for 22 years and said nothing. What was I supposed to do? Destroy your marriage? Destroy your family? We all agreed. We. Marcus closed his eyes. The four of us, your groomsmen, we agreed never to speak about that weekend. The four of you. The pieces clicked together. You all slept with her. I don't know about all of us. I know Jason did. Maybe Tim. I don't know about David. We never talked about it specifically. We all knew something happened, and we agreed to bury it. For 23 years. For your sake, Nathan, for the ministry, your father... Don't you dare bring my father into this. Your father built this church from nothing, 3,000 members. You inherited that legacy. If this had come out back then, it would have destroyed everything Robert worked for. We were protecting. You were protecting yourselves. I stepped back, put space between us before I did something I'd regret. You slept with my fiance. You let me raise your daughter. You sat on my elder board for 18 years making decisions about church discipline and moral standards. And the whole time you knew. I'm sorry. I don't want your apology. I want you to tell me the truth. Is Hannah yours? The DNA test says, I'm asking you, do you believe Hannah is your biological daughter? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes, I think she probably is. The parking lot spun. I grabbed the car door for balance. Nathan, get away from me. We can handle this quietly. No one has to know. Hannah's wedding is in 6 weeks. If we just what? Keep lying? Pretend this never happened? Let my daughter marry your son without telling them they're half siblings? They're not. Biologically, they're fine. It's not illegal or... It's grotesque, Marcus. Your son is marrying your daughter. They're planning babies, a family, and you want to stay silent? I want to protect the ministry. The ministry. I laughed. It came out harsh, bitter. The ministry is built on lies. My marriage is a lie. My family is a lie. And you want me to protect it? Think about the church, Nathan. 3,000 people depend on us. The school, the food bank, the missions work. If this comes out, then it comes out. You'll lose everything. I already have, Marcus. I already have. I got in my car, drove home through empty streets. It was past midnight when I pulled into the driveway. Rebecca's light was still on upstairs. I couldn't face her, couldn't face anyone. I went to my office, sat in the dark. Marcus Morrison, my best man, my college roommate, my elder, my supposed brother in Christ, Hannah's father, and he'd known. For 22 years, he'd known and said nothing. Wednesday morning, Linda Chen knocked on my office door. Go away, I said. Not a chance. She came in anyway, closed the door behind her. You've been avoiding me since Sunday. You look like death. What's going on? Nothing I can talk about. Try me. I looked at her. Linda was 49, associate pastor for 12 years, the only woman on our pastoral staff. She'd fought for that position. Our elder board had resisted for years before finally relenting. She was tougher than all of us combined. If I tell you, I said slowly, you'll have to make a decision about what to do with the information. So will you. Fair point. I told her all of it. The DNA test, Rebecca's confession, the prayer journal, Marcus in the parking lot, the other 3 groomsmen. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. What are you going to do? She asked finally. I don't know. Yes, you do. She pulled out the church constitution from my bookshelf, the navy blue binder with our church logo embossed on the cover, flipped to section 7. Moral standards for leadership, she read aloud. Any leader who conceals disqualifying sin must step down or be removed. Full disclosure is required for restoration. That's for affairs during ministry. This happened before. Rebecca has been in leadership for 18 years, women's ministry director, on stage every Sunday, teaching 400 women about godly marriage, the whole time knowing she'd concealed paternity fraud. Linda looked up. If the rules apply to anyone, they apply to her. But not to Marcus. He's an elder. The rules apply to him too, and to you if you stay silent. Me? Section 7 doesn't just cover the sin, it covers the concealment. She set the binder on my desk. If you know about disqualifying sin in leadership and don't disclose it, you're complicit. I stared at the Constitution. 32 pages, navy blue cover, rules we'd spent years crafting, standards we'd held others to. Now they were being held against me. You're saying I have to tell the church. I'm saying you have to make a choice. Live by the standards you've preached, or become the hypocrite you've always warned against. Linda's voice was gentle but firm. This is your job moment, Nathan. Will you maintain integrity or cave to institutional pressure? If I tell the truth, I'll lose everything. Maybe, or maybe you'll finally start building on a real foundation instead of a pretty lie. Hannah will be destroyed. Hannah will be hurt. There's a difference. She's 22, not 12. She's strong enough to handle truth. The church will do what it always does. Some will leave, some will stay, but you'll know who they really are, the ones who show up for grace, not performance. I picked up my Bible. The burgundy leather was cool in my hands. 18 years of sermons lived in these margins. I've preached 1,100 sermons, I said. Not one of them prepared me for this. That's how you know it's the right one. Linda stood, put her hand on my shoulder. You've counseled 500 couples. You've walked people through every crisis imaginable. You tell them truth sets you free. Now you have to believe it yourself. She left me alone in my office. I sat there until staff meeting, went through the motions, planned the next sermon series, discussed the church budget, all the while thinking, should I tell the truth or should I protect everything I've built? Would you choose truth that destroys everything or silence that preserves the ministry? I wish I could tell you there was an easy answer, that I knew immediately what to do, but I didn't. I spent 3 days wrestling with it, praying, walking the empty sanctuary at 2 a.m, staring at my Bible and seeing no clear answer written in the margins. On Saturday, I made a decision. I went to a private medical lab on the west side of Cedar Rapids. The kind of place that does paternity testing. Discreet, professional, no questions asked. The nurse handed me a consent form. You'll need the child's consent if they're over 18. She already did a DNA test. Can you use those results? Not without authorization from the other lab. We can do a new test if you bring her in, or you can do it yourself with the court order. Never mind. I signed the forms anyway. Had my sample taken, paid in cash for rush processing. The results would come back in 5 business days. Not that it mattered, I already knew what they'd say. The ancestry DNA test had been clear enough, but I needed official documentation, medical grade certainty, something I could show Hannah when I finally told her the truth. Because Linda was right, I couldn't keep this hidden, couldn't be the pastor who preaches transparency while hiding the biggest lie of his life. I just needed proof first, real proof, the kind that couldn't be dismissed as a genealogy app glitch. The results arrived on Wednesday. Plain brown envelope. DNA Diagnostic Center return address, medical grade paper inside, official letterhead in blue ink. I opened it in my office after Wednesday night service. Everyone had gone home except the janitor. Carlos was vacuuming the fellowship hall, the sound distant through the walls. I unfolded the paper, heavy stock, professional weight, an embossed seal at the bottom. I could trace it with my fingertip, the raised edges of official truth. Alleged father, Marcus James Morrison, combined paternity index 1,247.532, probability of paternity 99.96%. Conclusion, Marcus James Morrison is not excluded as the biological father of Hannah Grace Shepard. I turned to the second page. Alleged father, Nathan Gregory Shepard, combined paternity index 0.00, probability of paternity 0.0%. Conclusion, Nathan Gregory Shepard is excluded as the biological father of Hannah Grace Shepard. There it was. Black ink on white paper, mathematical certainty. 99.96% versus 0.00%. Marcus was her father. I wasn't. I'd known, of course. The ancestry DNA test had made it clear. But seeing it in official medical terminology, seeing that zero, something broke inside me. I baptized 200 people, married 89 couples, counseled 500 families through crisis, preached 1,100 sermons. And my entire ministry is built on a daughter who isn't mine and a wife who let me believe a lie for 22 years. I sat there until Carlos finished vacuuming, until the lights in the fellowship hall went dark, until the only sound was my own breathing in the empty church. Then I walked to the sanctuary. The building was dark, quiet. I didn't turn on the lights, just walked down the center aisle to the pulpit. My pulpit, where I'd stood every Sunday for 18 years, where I'd preached about truth and integrity and living biblically, where I'd held my Bible and declared God's word to 3,000 people. I climbed the steps, stood behind the pulpit, looked out at the empty pews. In 2 days, those pews would be filled. 2,100 people would sit there waiting for me to tell them about God, about faith, about how to live. And I would stand here holding my Bible and my lies. Unless I told them the truth. I pulled the paternity results from my jacket pocket, set them on the pulpit next to my Bible, the two documents side by side, God's word and scientific certainty, both saying the same thing. The truth matters, even when it costs you everything. I opened my Bible to Psalm 51, David's confession. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. David had hidden his sin for months, covered it up, let people believe a lie, and it had nearly destroyed him. Was I going to do the same thing? I thought about Hannah, about Sunday morning when she'd hugged me after my sermon on biblical fatherhood. I love you, Dad. She deserved the truth, even if it shattered her. I thought about the church, about 3,000 people who trusted me to model integrity, to live what I preached. They deserve the truth too, even if it destroyed my ministry. I thought about my father, Robert Shepard, who'd built this church from nothing, who died 5 years ago after making me promise to keep the church family strong. Would telling the truth honor his legacy or destroy it? I sat in the front pew, held my Bible, prayed in the darkness. God, I've preached truth for 18 years. Now I have to live it. Please don't let this destroy everyone. The sanctuary was silent. No voice from heaven, no clear answer, just me and my Bible and the choice I had to make. tell the truth and lose everything, or stay silent and become the hypocrite I'd always preached against. I stayed there until 2 a.m. When I finally left, I knew what I had to do. I had to preach the hardest sermon of my life. Thursday morning, I started writing, not a normal sermon, not the kind where I exegete a passage and draw 3 application points. This was different. This was a confession that 3,000 people would hear, a truth bomb that would either destroy my ministry or redefine it. I sat at my desk with a yellow legal pad, my burgundy Bible open to Psalm 51. David's confession after he'd been caught. Against you, you only, have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. Except I hadn't sinned. Rebecca had, Marcus had, but I'd lived in the shadow of their sin for 22 years without knowing it, and now I had to figure out how to confess that without destroying Hannah before she even heard the words. I wrote, crossed out, rewrote. The sermon title came first. When Shepherds Need Shepherding. Then the opening. How do you tell a congregation that their pastor's perfect family was built on lies? How do you model grace while exposing sin? How do you ask for forgiveness when you're the one who was sinned against? I worked through Friday. Saturday afternoon, Rebecca came to my office door. "What are you working on?" she asked. Her voice was careful. We'd barely spoken since Wednesday night. "Sunday's sermon." "What's it about?" I looked up at her. 23 years of marriage, 2 decades of partnership in ministry, and now this wall between us that neither of us knew how to cross. "Truth," I said. Something in my tone made her face go pale. "Nathan." "Not now, Rebecca, please." She left. I heard her car pull out of the driveway 20 minutes later, going somewhere. I didn't ask where. I kept writing. By Saturday night, I had 7 pages, single-spaced, my handwriting sprawling across the legal pad. Some sections had tear stains. Some had angry crossouts. Some had prayers scribbled in the margins. The final line read, "Grace isn't real until we need it. Not just preach it, need it, and I need it. My daughter needs it. My wife needs it. Even Marcus needs it. If this church can't offer grace to its own shepherd, how can we offer it to anyone?" I read it over 3 times. Then I called Diane, our church secretary. "Pastor Nathan, it's 10 p.m. Is everything... I need you to update Sunday's bulletin. Change the sermon title to When Shepherds Need Shepherding." That's not what we have scheduled. We were doing the series on... I know. Change it anyway. Silence. Then, "Okay, is this a typo? It's an unusual title." "It's not a typo, Diane. Print 2,000 bulletins. I'll see you tomorrow." I hung up before she could ask more questions. Sunday morning, I got to church at 6 a.m. The building was empty except for the janitor. I walked to the sanctuary, stood at the pulpit, looked out at the empty pews that would soon hold 2,100 people. People who trusted me, people who thought I had answers, people who believed their pastor had his life together. My hands were shaking. I set my Bible on the pulpit. The burgundy leather looked almost black in the early morning light. I opened it to Psalm 51. David's words, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." I needed a clean heart, or at least an honest one. By 7:30, staff started arriving. Linda found me in my office. "You're really doing this," she said. "I'm really doing this." "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, like I'm about to jump off a cliff." She put her hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing." "Then why does it feel like I'm about to destroy everything?" "Because truth is expensive, but it's worth the cost." I hope she was right. The sanctuary filled. Early service draws 700. By 8:45, every seat was taken. I could see Hannah in the 3rd row with Caleb. She was wearing the pink hospital bracelet on her wrist, the one from when she was born. She wore it sometimes when she was nervous, called it her good luck charm. She had no idea her luck was about to run out. Marcus was in the elder section, 2nd row, right side. Same seat he'd occupied for 18 years. Jennifer beside him, both of them looking normal, like any other Sunday. Rebecca took the stage with the worship team. She caught my eye once, looked away quickly. Worship started. How great thou art. Cornerstone. What a beautiful name. I stood in the wings, heart pounding, mouth dry. The yellow legal pad with my sermon felt like it weighed 100 pounds. This was it. The moment of no return. Worship ended. Linda introduced me. Pastor Nathan Shepard will be bringing this morning's message. I walked to the pulpit. 2,100 faces. My church, my family, all of them waiting. I opened my Bible, set the legal pad beside it, gripped the pulpit with both hands to stop them from shaking. Good morning, I said. My voice carried across the sanctuary, steady, pastoral. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Psalm 51, David's prayer of confession. Pages rustled, 2,100 bulletins opening, the sound of a congregation settling in to listen. I could see the bulletin title. Diane had done what I asked. When shepherds need shepherding, printed in bold letters. Someone in the third row, an elderly woman named Margaret, was already using her bulletin to fan herself. September in Iowa. The AC was working, but nerves ran hot. David wrote this psalm, I said, after the prophet Nathan confronted him about Bathsheba. David had sinned, covered it up, lived with the lie for months, and then God sent Nathan to expose the truth. I paused, breathed. Funny thing about that story, Nathan, the prophet, was named Nathan. My name. And God used him to bring truth to a leader who'd been living a lie. A few polite chuckles. They thought it was sermon humor. They didn't know yet. I've been your pastor for 18 years, I continued. I've preached 1,100 sermons from this pulpit. I've talked about truth, about integrity, about living transparently before God and each other. My hands tightened on the pulpit, and today I'm going to preach the hardest sermon I've ever preached, because 3 weeks ago I learned something that changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The sanctuary went quiet. You could hear breathing, the shuffle of someone shifting in their seat. 3 weeks ago, my daughter Hannah did a DNA test, just for fun, a Heritage Sunday project, trace our ancestry, see where our family came from. I looked at Hannah. She was leaning forward, confused. Why was I talking about her DNA test in a sermon? 2 weeks ago, I got the results, and I learned that Hannah, my daughter, the girl I've raised for 22 years, isn't biologically mine. The sanctuary erupted. Gasps, murmurs. Someone said, "Oh my God," loud enough to hear. Margaret dropped her bulletin. Hannah's face went white. I kept going, had to keep going. If I stopped, I'd never start again. The DNA test matched Hannah to someone else, someone in this church, someone I've trusted for 23 years. I looked directly at Marcus. My best man, my college roommate, Elder Marcus Morrison. He's Hannah's biological father. More gasps. People turning to look at Marcus. He sat frozen in his seat. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. My wife, Rebecca, confessed that during our wedding weekend, the weekend before we got married, she slept with 4 of my groomsmen. She doesn't remember clearly which encounters happened when, but one of them resulted in Hannah. And 22 years later, we finally know which one. The murmurs got louder. Someone stood up in the back, walked out. The door closed with a heavy thud. I stand before you today not as your perfect pastor, not as the man who has his life together. I stand before you as a broken man who desperately needs the grace I've been preaching to you for 18 years. My voice cracked. I pushed through it. I've preached truth. I've lived a lie. Not intentionally, I didn't know, but the foundation of my family, the thing I've built my entire ministry on, was false. And now I have to decide, do I hide it? Do I protect the image? Do I keep the secret and let everyone think Pastor Nathan still has the perfect Christian family? I looked out at the congregation, tears streaming down faces, shock, anger, confusion. Or do I stand here and tell you the truth even though it destroys everything? Silence. Complete silence. I'm choosing truth because grace isn't real until we need it, not just preach it, need it. I was crying now, not trying to hide it, just letting it happen. I need grace. Hannah needs grace. Rebecca needs grace. Marcus needs grace. We're all broken. We're all desperate. And if this church can't offer grace to its own shepherd, how can we offer it to anyone? The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Then someone in the back row stood up. An older man, Deacon Williams. He'd been at this church for 40 years. He started clapping, slow, steady. Then someone else stood, then another. A standing ovation, not for my perfection, for my honesty, for finally admitting that shepherds need shepherding too. I gripped the pulpit and wept. After the service, I went to my office, locked the door, sat at my desk with my head in my hands. There was a knock, soft, hesitant. Dad? Hannah. I unlocked the door. She stood there with Caleb. Her face was blotchy from crying. The pink hospital bracelet was still on her wrist. She came in, closed the door behind her. Caleb stayed in the hallway. Is it true? She asked. I pulled out the paternity results, set them on the desk. She picked them up with shaking hands. Marcus James Morrison, 99.96%, not excluded. She read it slowly, then looked up at me. So Marcus Morrison, Caleb's dad, is my... Biologically, yes. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where I'd counseled hundreds of people through crisis. Now my daughter was the one in crisis. Are you still my dad? She whispered. I came around the desk, knelt in front of her, took her hands. Hannah Grace, I have been your father since the moment I felt you kick in your mother's belly. I was the first person to hold you. I dedicated you to God in front of this congregation. I taught you to pray. I baptized you in that sanctuary font. I walked you through every crisis. I've shown up for 22 years. My voice broke. Marcus Morrison donated DNA. I built a life with you. Biology doesn't make fathers, sweetheart. 22 years of showing up makes fathers. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I don't know what's real anymore. If you're not my real dad, is God even real? Is any of this real? This is real. I held her tight. Me holding you is real. That's the only truth that matters right now. We stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, or whatever we were now. The labels didn't matter. The love did. Finally, she pulled back, wiped her eyes, looked at the hospital bracelet on her wrist. This says baby girl shepherd from when I was born. You're still a shepherd, Hannah. You've always been a shepherd, not because of DNA, because I chose you. Every single day for 22 years, I chose you. She started crying again, but different tears this time. You're my dad. Biology doesn't change that. You donated 22 years of truth. That's worth more than DNA. I pulled her close again, and in that moment, I understood. Fatherhood isn't biology. It's showing up. It's loving someone when you don't have to, when it costs you everything, when it would be easier to walk away. That's what makes you a dad. Monday night, emergency elder board meeting, all 12 elders, plus pastoral staff. The church constitution sat on the conference table, navy blue binder, section 7 open. Marcus stood, pulled a typed letter from his briefcase. His hand shook as he set it on the table. My resignation, he said it, effective immediately. I'm disqualified from leadership under section 7. I'll step down from the elder board and from any role in the church. The room was silent. Then Elder Thompson spoke. We need to discuss this. For 2 hours we discussed. Some argued Marcus should resign. Some argued I should resign. Some argued Rebecca should be barred from ministry permanently. Linda read section 7 again. Any leader who conceals disqualifying sin must step down or be removed. Full disclosure is required for restoration. Nathan made full disclosure, Deacon Williams said. He told the whole church. That's the opposite of concealment. But he's been living the lie. He didn't know he was living a lie. There's a difference between deception and being deceived. The debate went on. Finally, we voted. First vote, Marcus's resignation. The board voted unanimously to refuse it. Grace covers past sin when confessed. You're staying, Marcus, under restoration accountability. Marcus put his head in his hands. Thank you, he whispered. Second vote, Rebecca's ministry status. She would step down from women's ministry director. Restoration process for 1 year. No stage presence. She could attend services, but not lead. Third vote, Nathan's position as senior pastor. My heart pounded as they discussed. Some said I should step down for optics. Others said my confession proved my integrity. Finally, the vote. All in favor of keeping Pastor Nathan Shepard as senior pastor? Hands went up, elder by elder. The chairman counted. 10 yes, 2 abstain. Nathan, you're staying. I couldn't speak, just nodded. Elder Thompson stood. This church is making history tonight. We're choosing grace over performance, truth over image. That's what Jesus would do. The meeting ended at midnight. I drove home. Rebecca was waiting up. They kept you, she said. They did. And me? Restoration process, 1 year, then we'll see. She nodded, started to say something, stopped. Nathan, I know I can't fix this. I know 22 years of I'm sorry won't change what I did, but I want you to know I'm going to do the work. Real work, not performance, not pretending, actual restoration. Okay, I said, because what else was there to say? We were broken, maybe irreparably, but we were finally being honest about it. The sermon went viral. Someone had recorded it on their phone, posted it to YouTube. Within 72 hours, it had 450,000 views. Comments poured in, Christians debating whether I should have resigned, non-Christians praising the honesty. Everyone had an opinion. News outlets picked it up. Pastor confesses family crisis from pulpit. Iowa church chooses grace over cancel culture. DNA test reveals pastor's daughter belongs to best friend. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Interview requests, podcast invitations, other pastors asking for advice. I ignored most of it, focused on my family, on Hannah, on the church. Hannah postponed her wedding, not canceled, postponed, to November 2026, 1 year away. I need time, she told me, time to process, time to figure out who I am if I'm not exactly who I thought I was, time for all of us to heal. Caleb agreed. They'd stay engaged, keep planning, but take a year for therapy, for restoration, for truth. Micah, my 19-year-old son, came home from college for a weekend, sat me down in my office. I always thought you guys were perfect, he said, the perfect pastor family, and it kind of messed me up, because I'm not perfect, and I figured I was letting you down. Micah, but now I know you're not perfect either. None of us are, and that's actually better, because now I don't have to pretend anymore. He hugged me, and I realized sometimes the greatest gift we can give our children is showing them we're human too. Nathan and Hannah redefined what family means. Not who you're born to, but who shows up. 22 years of showing up. If you've built your own chosen family, if you've been loved by someone who didn't have to love you but chose to anyway, tell me about them in the comments. I want to hear those stories. And if this story moved you, I tell stories about grace, truth, and finding yourself in the wreckage. Real stories about real people who survived the unsurvivable. I'll see you in the next one. November 2026, 1 year later, I stood at the same pulpit, same burgundy Bible, same sanctuary. But everything was different. The bulletin that Sunday read, "Grace begins when perfect ends." Hannah sat in the front row. She'd married Caleb the previous month. A small ceremony, intimate, honest, no performance. Just two people choosing each other with their eyes wide open. Rebecca sat in the congregation, not on stage. That was part of her restoration. She'd spent the year in intensive counseling, had started a ministry for women carrying secrets, called it Messy Grace. 12 women showed up the first week, 30 the next. Women who'd been hiding, women who needed permission to be broken. Marcus still attended, still sat in the elder section, though his role had changed. He and Jennifer had worked through their own crisis. It hadn't been easy, but they were still together, still fighting for their marriage. I opened my Bible, looked out at the congregation, some of the same faces from a year ago, some new ones, people who'd been drawn by the viral sermon, people who wanted a church that was honest instead of perfect. I've preached 1,101 sermons now, I said. Number 1,101 was last year's confession sermon. It was the hardest sermon I've ever preached. I paused. Let the memory hang in the air. It was also the most real sermon I've ever preached, because for the first time in my ministry, I wasn't preaching from a place of having it all together. I was preaching from a place of desperate need. And I learned something. Grace isn't real until we need it for ourselves, not just for other people. Heads nodded throughout the sanctuary. This past year has been the hardest of my life. I've lost things I thought were essential, my perfect family image, my reputation as the pastor who had all the answers, my certainty about who I was. I looked at Hannah. She smiled at me, a real smile. But I've gained something more valuable. I've gained truth. I've gained honest relationships. I've gained a church that chooses grace over performance. And I've learned that shepherds need shepherding too. I closed my Bible. The burgundy leather was worn now, even more than before. Another year of Sundays in the margins. We can't shepherd others through valleys we refuse to walk ourselves. And this year I've walked through the valley, with you, with this church. And I've learned that God's grace is big enough even for pastors who mess up, even for families that fall apart, even for people who thought they were disqualified. The sanctuary was quiet, listening. So today I want to say thank you. Thank you for not walking away when I told the truth. Thank you for choosing to stay when it would have been easier to leave. Thank you for showing me what grace really looks like. I picked up my Bible, held it close. Let's talk about what happens after you tell the truth, about how to rebuild on an honest foundation instead of a pretty lie, about how to move forward when you can't go back. And I preached, not from a place of perfection, but from a place of hard-won wisdom, the kind you only get by walking through fire and coming out the other side. After the service, Hannah came up to the pulpit, Caleb beside her. "Good sermon, Dad," she said. Dad. She still called me Dad. "Thanks, sweetheart." She hugged me, then pulled back, adjusted the pink hospital bracelet on her wrist. She still wore it sometimes. "You know what I figured out this year?" she said. "What's that?" "A father isn't the man whose DNA you share. A father is the man who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when he finds out you're not biologically his. That's what makes someone a dad." I pulled her close. "You're right, and you'll always be my daughter, no matter what any test says." She smiled. Then she and Caleb headed out to Sunday lunch. I stood at the pulpit a little longer, alone in the empty sanctuary, holding my Bible, looking at the pews where 3,000 people came every week to hear about God. A year ago, I'd stood here and told the truth that destroyed my perfect image, the truth that cost me everything I thought mattered, and I'd gained something better, something real. I've preached 1,101 sermons on truth, and I'm finally living what I've been preaching all along.